Yes, that's Daughtry with Desperation. That's a beautiful song. My all-time favorite. Desperation calls for love. So I'm sending this song, this beautiful song, to my family, my Augustine family. You know, so I want you guys to come back to Love Train and let's figure things out. So that song go directly to them, to my family, my Augustine family. Anyway, this is Monica, your friend Monica. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Now, years ago, I used to work at Home Depot. In fact, that's where my husband met me at. I don't know what's wrong with my hair. Okay. That's where he met me. I used to work at Home Depot. And when I work at Home Depot, every morning I used to say, "Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Happy Wednesday. Happy," because every single day is a happy day. It should be. If it doesn't go a happy day, something went off the rails. And as you can see, if you've been paying attention with me, I don't like when things go off the rail. So if they off the rail, we gotta bring it back, because the default status should be happy, right? That's it. We should be happy every day that we are alive. So that's that. Now we are gonna talk about the family drama. We really are. Like I told you before, I simply do not know when this family drama will ever conclude. But it will conclude whenever it's gonna conclude. But as far as I know, Monica Agustin is gonna be talking about the family drama. The Bronny, the villain, the David's wife, yeah, she will be talking about the family drama. Cause I just feel like, hey, it's a drama. Hey, it's a play. I didn't pick this play. This play picked me, and I live it. So I might as well to recite the play. I'm not Hillary Clinton. I don't have millions of dollars to use for Broadway show. Go sit there with my popcorn while I'm enjoying the play. I just don't have it. In fact, they are making play so like an edifice relegated for always the same subject, right? It used to be in ancient Greek. There would be a big place where everybody can go and see a play. But now you have to be rich to see plays. But nevertheless, we don't have to, because here an Augustine play is free for anybody, right? So that's that. Now, before we get to this play, I want to I always start off the day with what's happening in the world. Okay, what's happening on planet Earth? We should be informed because we are U.S. citizens, like we discussed yesterday. My mother-in-law, a new term that I introduced yesterday, just in case for those in the back who could have not picked that up, because I keep referring to her as the principal character, the matriarch of the Augustine family, my husband's mother, right? And so I thought, hey, Monica, you should not be assumed who is who here, because again, this play is for anybody. You should make sure you point out things, that information that people should know, the audience should know, okay? And that was not an original thought for me. It's a thought that I get through working on the workforce, the industry. That's why I picked that up. Because working as a broke woman my whole life, they always, in the companies, they always take the time to tell us things that I, at the time, trying to be smart aleck, because hello, I'm a leftist. I thought, like, why are they telling us this? They treat us like we children. This is not correct. We already know this thing because our mom and dad did that, or life did that. We over 18 years old. That should not be taught. But I was the wrong and they were the right, okay? Because when it comes to this culture, or maybe more other cultures, a lot of things need to be spelled out, okay? So that's where I get that from. That's why I introduced that term yesterday, my mother-in-law, because that's the correct title. That's the mother of my husband, David Augustine, my husband. So I said that yesterday. But we start off with the what's happening on planet Earth. No, number one thing that Monica, the leftist, that caught my eye is that this I want to say this scholar, this researchers. Her name is Tamisha J. John. Okay, Tamisha John. If you go on Twitter, she is at Tamisha John, which is TAMANISHA. Las John JONN. Her. This Tamisha Johnson. She is a scholar. She is an activist. She is a leftist, and she's in a bit of a trouble right now because, again, if you leftist, you literally stay in trouble. Okay, that's what that is. When you are leftist, you're gonna be in trouble, especially if you a blackie or brownie. And Tamisha is very much a black woman. Okay, that's what I know about her. I think she is a Caribbean. I think she is a Haitian. I think she is a Caribbean. Okay, so she is a Caribbean, and she's from Canada. So that she is a little bit in trouble because, again, she will have an inconvenient position of saying, hey, this whole Iran thing about the so-called something happened to the protesters. The Iranian government did something wrong to the protesters. That's a bunch of bullshit. So that's her position. That's my position. That's the correct leftist position. Anybody that's called themselves a leftist and doesn't have that position is full of shit. Okay? That's what I call a it's a what is how do I say this? A control opposition. Okay? So if you are saying that something wrong with the government of Iran and you are leftist, you not a leftist the way I understand it should be. You are a control opposition. So that's that, right? Now, why would we know that? Is that because, Monica, you're so smart and you already know that? Well, maybe, but not quite. Because, well, I know what happened to Iraq. I know what happened to Afghanistan. I know what happened to Somalia. I know what happened to Palestine. I know what happened to Libya. I know what happened to these other places. I know what happened to Venezuela. I know what happened to Cuba. I know what happened to Nicaragua. I know what happened because I know who do these things. And I know that when they start saying stuff about protests elsewhere, I'm the leftist, I don't. Because other protests that may be inconvenient, like the one that was here in universities, it was crushed. In fact, now university, you cannot have any protests. So I already know if it's being covered by any sort, it's a bunch of bullshit. That's number one thing. Number two thing is that when it comes to Iranian diaspora that will make these arguments that the Iran government is bad, you have to understand one thing about the Iranian diaspora. And I want you to understand it. I got this understanding from somebody that I tweet multiple times a day, I think, and I'll share his work. His name, very famous severe leftist, is Dr. Syed Mohammed Morandi. Okay, that's his name. You can go on Twitter and find him there. All right, he's there. Dr. Morandi gave me some understanding. Now, up to this point, I knew that the diaspora in generality is a bunch of bullshit, right? These are not leftists, to say the least, right? And mind you, I'm biased. I like leftists, period. I just like them. But I don't like it just whatever anybody call leftists. I like the correct leftists, like me. That's what I like. And when you are correct leftist like me, typically the argument you get from fake leftists is that you are a purist. But I am not a purist. I'm just a correct leftist. All right? I don't know what pure it is. I can't be pure. I'm a mulatto. So, hey, it can't be pure here. Okay? So, I'm not a purist. I'm just a correct leftist. The leftist I would like to see. Now, that's my position. You can disagree with that. We can have arguments with that. But that's my position. All right, so when it comes to the diaspora, I already know it's full of shit. Because, hey, if you're in the diaspora and you have a problem with that government, right? You should have been in that country and fight that out. And then I know I'll take you serious. If you're not fighting that out there, right? You full of shit. But even if you are there, right? And you fighting that out, a lot of time, white supremacists, white degenerate in the white supremacy house will give you support there, right? They will give you support there. So at the minimum, even though they're giving you support there on that country to exercise whatever that is, you are a traitor to the country, no less. At least I have a small dignity for you because you literally in the middle of it all, right? That's my position with that. But if you're outside the country, then you're talking shit. You from Equatorial Guinea. You live in London, and you're talking shit about the government in Equatorial Guinea. Now, I know it's not the best government on earth. I do know it. But, Monica, I'm not fighting. I cannot change it, right? I'm not in the country. So, I cannot do too much talking smack, right? And I definitely not going to ask white folks, hey, come to Equatorial Guinea where it's a bunch of black folks and help me out. Because I know what white folks going to do. Oh, yeah? You need help? Let me help you out. Wipe out the black folks and take over the land. So I'm not going to do that, okay? I'm not going to do that. So that's the diaspora for you. So when it comes to Iranian diaspora, that's what the topic of the subject. Why would Tanisha be such in trouble with the Iranian diaspora, right? Which I think is the most disgusting diaspora imaginable. I picked up something else from Dr. Morandi to help me out because I'm already disgusted, repulsive with this particular diaspora, the Iranian diaspora. Dr. Morandi, what he basically said in one of the interviews, and I forgot which one because I watched so many of them, is that you have to understand about this particular diaspora. Iran have been blockaded for a long time. One of the most sanctioned countries on earth. They have crippled that country since the revolution, right? And that was 1979. So it's been a while. And life in Iran is not always easy. But I can say the same thing in U.S. because the leftists who live here, life has not been easy for me either. But it's not like Iran. If I need a bank account, I can actually go to the bank, open my bank account, and everything will be fine. When I get my mystery check, it could be deposited there, right? If I need something, and I do have the money, which most of the time I don't, I could buy it if I need it, right? I have no jeopardy that if medicine, other than the money situation, right? If there's medicine that I need, right? And I have the money, I cannot buy it. That's not an issue for me. That's Iran issue though. It don't matter if you do have money or not. You may not have access to the things you need because there's the money country called United States. So that's that. That's the situation in Iran. So for Iranian people, right? Some of them will say, well, we like this revolution. We are independent, sovereign country. I understand that. But here, from day to day, this is just hard, right? And they'll do what they have to do to get out of the country and move elsewhere. Now, typically, the people who came out of Iran are the kind of migrant that used to come from Latin America some time ago, over 100 years ago, now, typically. Now, Latin America now, the migrant that come from Latin America is more than the middle class, right? People who want to pursue more. There's the poorest and everybody else. But when it comes to Iran, though, the people who will migrate from Iran are gonna be the middle class, I would say. The middle class, the upperly strivers, like we would say. So if you're a striver, you are middle class. You are, and know you Iranian. You are the most sought after diaspora person from the white colonizers, right? You really are. Because you need these people. These are smart people. These are, and if you use the terminology of Canada, ambitious, right? Ambitious people. They use that in a negative way. But ambitious means that you are moving from your realm. You are leaving the revolution behind. No, forget about it. Because remember what white supremacists want to do. They want to take over the country and destroy it and make it non-country, right? That's what they want. So these people they were trying to get them to be on the board with the white supremacists, right? So that's one thing. Another thing is, if you want to be in these Western white colonizers countries, you cannot be that. You cannot be pro-Iran. You cannot really act like you don't have nothing to do with Iran. You have to buy into the euphemism, the whatever white supremacists use to make them seem like they're human and not degenerates that they are. Like, hey, we love the Iranian people. We just don't like the Iranian government. So that's what the diasporic Iranian will buy into. It's not about Iranian people, it's about the government. Okay? So that's what these people are. Now, at the human level, you have to understand, even if they are slightly leftist or if they have leftist idea, they can't really be leftist, because if they are, they will be targeted right off. So for this particular diaspora, they have what I call double bind, right? They are simply double bind, right? They, even if they do want to be leftist, just cannot afford to be leftist like me, who gets no fuck, right? Right? That's it, right? So that's how the diaspora works with these people. Now, when it comes to Tanisha, she is not going to buy that either. She just like me. She will report what I told you, how white supremacists truly are, raggedy. She's not going to. She doesn't talk like me. She does not. She's an intellectual. She will use language, coordination, how people speak. The people who went to school speak. I did not really go to school. I do not speak like that. I don't know, right? I mean, I could learn. Well, I don't know if I could. At this point, I'm 50 years old. I know how much I can learn. But nevertheless, I just don't speak like that. She does, though. She is a Socratic type of person. She exposes the contradiction, expresses herself. She's in an intellectual circle, so she would. But she will more or less have my same position as me. Like, hey, fuck that shit you talking about, that Iran government was tracking down on the protests. And hey, you saying 35,000 protests that was killed. I think the protest is the one who was doing the killing. And hey, Iranian diaspora, I don't think I agree with you, right? So that's what happened to her. And because she's a black woman, right? The ultra writers, or what I could call the degenerate beyond the garbage, the thugs, essentially, right? Because when it comes to the white degenerates, these kind of like the Proud Boy, the the people who don't really have too much legitimacy even among white folks, because they are essentially white beasts that for white supremacy, especially US state, they need those people because those are the ones who actually would take matters in a hand when they need to crack up any semblance of leftist. Those degenerates are trying to go after her. Now, then there's not the one who really going after her. Who is going after her is the veneer leftist intellectuals in this Iranian diaspora. And then that will write up these other things because for her, she's just a black woman, right? Who have the kind of politics that they do not want to give air to. Because again, if you remember some of my videos, I already told you that when it comes to foreign policy in US, the people they need to convince as much as possible is the leftists, no matter what stripe, right? Why that is? Because they're the one who will just have questions, to say the least, about the state, about the settler colony, right? And if they don't want destroy the state or whatever they're trying to do, they always have to try to tamp it down. Because if you listen to Elon Musk, he knows, he say, even though left, we have no power in any meaningful way in this country, we just have the ideas, right? The ideas that are dangerous to the capitalist, settler, colonial, racist state. That's the violence that, according to degenerate Elon Musk, a product of a sexual relationship. Okay? So for this, when it comes to the Iranian diaspora, they also know that. They also know that, hey, we can have all the Republican Party, all the Democratic Party, all the people. But if these leftists are still talking about this is a bunch of bullshit, we can have it. We need to make sure that any left winger, no matter how obscure, we expose them. So that's what that. So I'm asking you a favor that make sure you go on Twitter and support our brave leftists, our brave black woman who just have correct position. She is not gonna be Michelle Obama with millions or billions of people who follow her for her watered down white supremacist garbage. Okay? Even though she is unequivocal black woman. This black woman is also like Michelle Obama, except with the correct politics. And we should be supporting people like that because they are brave. They literally are brave, and we should be protecting people like that. We don't have too many of them. We just lost Dr. Parenti, and we don't want to keep losing people who simply want peace in this world, want people to be treated right, want social economic. We just want something different than this hellhole. So we should try to support her. So that's my point for that. Now let's go back to our family drama here. If you remember yesterday, we spoke about a lot of things. It was so much said yesterday. I felt like everybody, more or less, the principal characters in this, in fact, the whole cast was addressed in this yesterday, right? We spoke a little bit about Lacey, right? So we said that she, something in relation to her, why the rules in this house need to be addressed. We spoke about the bag. I feel like the grocery bag of the principal character, Sonora Jean, is a cast in itself. We also spoke about that. we say that Christine, the pound attorney, what would be her extra motivation to enforce the rule that was given to her by the decision, right? The decision that led to this play, right? I elucidated, some of that, yeah, um, by, and we spoke about the minor character, just a little bit, right? And I think two occasions, one being when we were in Colorado, when we went um, to family vacation, and I had that significant event with the principal character when I introduced her as my mother-in-law. Um, he took charge. He was correct. He is like a patriarch or sort. Okay, he took the charge as a patriarch of this family, right? And then I made my little spiel about the fact that in the Christmas party, how I came across as the villain, and I made my case to you, the audience, to side with me that, hey, you were not really the villain, Monica. You were within your rights. You did the correct thing. You was helping this family, this Augustine family, this white folks, right? But they just stubborn and they didn't want to learn, right, the lesson. Because you could have just shut up like most black folks do, or other people of color when they're in the middle of white folks and they are doing their thing, right? And you didn't do that because, for once, you love these people. For two, you care about them. And for three, you just want a better world, right? So I hope, again, some of you who are on the fence with this villain, that's your fault. You shouldn't be picking on these wonderful white folks, and you should learn how to behave yourself and comport yourself. And then I also, the most important, that event that I told you in Colorado, I was telling you some of the mistakes that leftists we made on not slowing down. And when we have a chance to get our thinking out, or our opportunity to understand regular people, regular citizens. Now, when it comes to this particular aspect, and if you remember my episode yesterday, that's really not just white folks. That's just every demographic, by and large. But it's not because people just like that. It's because white supremacists are in charge of the communication, the means of communication, what people absorb, the what people read, what people watch, the experience. If you don't believe me, you can pursue writers who speak about this, like Gramsci, okay? So that's it, that's that, right? Because not everybody gonna be like Tanisha John, who's an intellectual and can read, reflect, and all that. No, majority of us, we don't do that. We just wake up in the morning, go to our miserable job, and that's it. Whatever it was throwing WGN, that's what we go with, right? So that's pretty much. So for most folks, that's it. Not to mention, even if you're not this one and you have a little bit more leisure time, like the DeWaldos in 2.5 million housing, you will get subscription on your door, New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the likes. In fact, and maybe if you're in Chicago, you'll get the Chicago Tribune, right? Or the Sun, or whatever else newspaper. Now, that's what you will get. And believe me, that doesn't get any better. It just get a more flowing language. It will not be, the language will be a little bit more the prose would be better, but in terms of the content, if the ideas would be exactly the same, right? So that's the thing, right? That's what we're working with, right? That's life, okay? And if you remember, there is a book I already cited, I on that Dr. Gabriel Rodwell wrote called "Who Paid the Pipers of Western Marxism." He talks a lot about this on that book, and we will be reading that book. Now, when I had that conversation that day with my mother-in-law, Jean, the principal character, right? I want to say something else about that because that applied to that bag in the hospital room, the land of the free, the home of the brave, American blue bag, type of thing. When that happened, when we had that incident in the family vacation in Colorado, there's something else that happened in another setting, okay? Not directly with her, but we will work with this. So, first of all, you have to understand, and maybe you already picked this up. You already said, you know what, Monica? You are a drama queen. You are the reason black folks, you guys are known for problem. That's where you overrepresent in jails. That's where you always on food stamps. That's what this and that, right? Again, the welfare queen, and mulatto woman somehow wind up the welfare queen that Reagan had to make this whole thing about. And you are just like that. That's what you would say, right? That's what you would say, that you are just a drama queen. And this is all because you are black folks. Yo, you folks, I think that's how you are. You folks are drama queen. You just need to grow up and act like a real adult, right? That's what you would say. And you would say it because you just make a huge deal out of the fact that this woman, she was in a hospital room and an ICU unit. In the ICU unit. She said she don't want you in that room. All right? That's what she said. She's entitled to that. She's entitled to say who does she want in her room and who does she not want in her room. That was her right, right? That was her right. She was in her right. You in the wrong. You shouldn't make the big deal out of this, right? You said that, right? You may be right. That may be correct. But, hey, this is me, my feelings, and it may be her right. And it's my right for my feelings and how I feel about this. And that's what I'm trying to address, okay? I'm trying to address for how I see things within this family, within the larger world, how things are, okay? And I'm just going to keep talking about it. This is my family. This is my husband's family. This is it, okay? I want people to know that, hey, Jean, the principal character, she did something Monica Agustin don't agree with, and this is why. So I'm going to keep giving you reasons why this is not the case. Why I think this is a big deal, and she should have never done that, okay? That's it. Now, when this back, right, this back we already talked about, and that incident that happened in the other place. Now, if you are being open-minded and you fair with me, you know that incident over there in Colorado that me and her had, I made mistake and she really didn't make mistake. And I have given her credit for that, right? I have given credit for that. If you don't believe me, go back yesterday episode and you will see how much credit I give her for that. And I learning from that experience how me, the leftist, supposed to comport myself in America whenever I'm talking to regular folks, instead of being this weirder leftist who know what my enemy is up to, and I already know facts about this enemy, and I just assume everybody know it, when in fact the majority of them actually don't know, or maybe not, they don't even know where to start. All right, that's the truth. How do I know this? Because even my own children, my kids listen to NPR, they read this paper, they may be my children, but they still go and vote the Democratic Party, and they do things that I'm like, oh my God, I did not transplant my leftist stuff into my kids. And they're not going to sit here trying to let their mom give them a spill. So I just let it be, okay? So that's how I know. Now, I want to bring you to a different setting. Why this may be the case. Why is it that, aside from other things that happened before and everything, why is that me, the leftist Monica, villainy problems keep appearing with me, right? Now, I can argue that, and my own personal family, where I originated from, it's not like that. Actually, I think I am a better, what do you call it, fit in that family in some ways than my sister, who does not share any of my politics. In fact, she share more or less the politics of my husband's family, right? But again, I think that despite my mother's reservation for my blindness, she more or less is in the same thing, but not quite. Okay, so I'll give you that. Now, when I think this is the message, and it's just a bit much for my mother-in-law, or she just don't know what to do with this whole situation. She just never seen something like this. I had to bring you back to it, the day that I told you she was here, right? I think. Let me see. No, she was here, but that day she was here with Henry, right? So that day she was here with Henry. All right. Now, she said something else that day. That, like, the first day where finally we went in her house. Now, I remember when I told you that day when she told me that David can contemplate going elsewhere because he can live his family, right? That day, I was shocked, and I was taken aback. I was just like, whoa, I never heard something like this. I didn't know this is a thing, right? So that was one thing she surprised me with. After knowing this woman by that point, about 8.5 years old. Yeah, the 8.5 years. But that was not the only surprise she ever gave me. The other surprise that she gave me was the day she came here for an intervention. If you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you should go back and watch some of my videos. All right? And just follow along. That day when she was here, and my husband said, and she was like, she only wanted to talk to my husband when her and Henry told them it's only, they only want to talk to my husband. And my husband said, hey, no, I'm sorry, absolutely not. Monica had to be here, because whatever you had to say, Monica had to be here. And I was impressed with my husband, right? Very impressed. Now, what? And you would say, why were you so impressed with your husband, stuff like that? If you know my husband personally, you know what I mean. He is a man of my manners, no drama. He is kind of person who just trying to work things out and then positive, not confrontational, just a good guy. The kind of guys that I like. I don't know people like. Despite what you think, I do not like the drug dealer because no, not me. Okay? But that's me. So my husband is like that in my manner. And he's just not the kind of person who like confrontation. Although I had to admit, why he is not confrontation with everybody else, with me, he feel comfortable to always put me on my place because I deserve it, right? I deserve it, and he is have confidence that with me, he can do that, and it's totally fine because I feel like I deserve it sometime. I don't know. I try not to give him any reason to do that, but if I do, I do, okay? And he just will correct that, and everything will be just fine. That day when she came here with Henry, she said something else, right? That confirmed my suspicions. Not suspicious at this time. Foregone conclusion that she made that decision that Monica, the brownie, the villain, David's wife, cannot go to her hospital room at the third floor at a hospital ICU unit, right? That nope, she cannot come here. That day also confirms that for me. So that day when he comes here to intervene in this crisis in this family, because oh my God, Emily was crying, and Emily should not be crying, right? Because remember, I told Emily, you broke the rule. You shouldn't be breaking the rule. And she started crying. And that unraveled the whole family. When she came here, my husband said, no, you had to talk to me here. She said something else. She told my husband that, are you afraid to be alone? That's what she asked my husband. All right? Now, when she says that, if my husband is afraid to be alone, maybe my husband, at this point, my husband was listening, everything kumbaya. I was just getting what you expect from a ghetto fabulous woman or something. I don't know what my behavior was. I do know that Henry that day was like, Monica, sit down. Monica, sit down. And also, and Henry asking my husband, see what you married? See what you married? Meaning like, this woman is out of control. You see what you married? That's what Henry position was. And she asked the question, right? When she asked the question, I was taken aback again, all right? Now, up to this point, I typically don't talk about the shadow I've been discussing a little bit. And I was like, well, if this woman is asking my husband that, if my husband is afraid to be alone, I wanted to know her position about the shadow that gave her 2 grandchildren, right? Does she feel like need to intervene in this household? I think that's logical, that's reasonable. I don't think I was being black, angry woman or anything like that. I just wanted to know what she knew, what was going on. It turns out she didn't really know. And knowing the way my husband is, what she know is what she could possibly know, right? So, with that, I say some of the things which I won't say here, and I left it a lot, right? And I left it a lot. But I did pick up that this woman asked my husband that question, and that was a problem for me. The audacity to ask another individual what, whether they want to be alone or not, when she have a common law husband, also, okay, so that's what I knew. Hey, I know what's going on here. This woman thing is what I suspected, if you remember yesterday. This is really not about my husband, the human, the individual, right? This is about the relations that's supposed to be operating in United States called capital relations. All right. And you will ask, again, like I already said before, because this is United States and or planet Earth, I cannot assume everybody know what I'm talking about. So I had to make sure I'm explicit sometimes. I'm not going to be explicit for everything, but some things I will be explicit for. So when it comes to capital relations, like I already mentioned, right? It's really not about the romantic relationship, the yearning of love that is important to the human being. It's about making sure things can go from one generation to the other. Okay? That's at least what that is. If you pay attention to US as a state, the settler capitalist state, when it comes to the resources of this, the resources generated in the state, the mechanism by which the things can be preserved in families is through this process that I'm trying to discuss. So, for example, in US, majority of people who go to work, they do not have what we call a guaranteed retirement, all right, where they can retire with dignity. That's not the majority. That somehow, like I was telling you about this whole deal with YouTube, that's why I want you to always put a like and subscribe, because they are making this just a cute thing just for a few. That thing too is trying to be reserved for just their preferred demographics, which happen to be coincidentally white folk. So since we don't have a guarantee, we do not have guaranteed retirement in this country, because the capital owners that run this stuff need to preserve that very delicate thing just for the favored people, favored citizen, right? That's just that. That's why something that should be a common good for a human that was born, grow up, and die can't have it. So, what I'm talking. So, if you pay attention on your benefit, you, the worker in the United States, you will notice that we have something called defined contribution, or some people will call it 401k or some other thing, something similar like that. Now we have that, and we don't have something called defined benefit, which is supposed to be something that a worker, right, go to work, employer will put it in there, so then when you all can no longer work, you can have that and pay your rent, pay your light when time comes, right? That's just how it is. So we don't have that. And why we don't have it? Because we gotta have this thing called defined contribution, right? Or you can call it 401k, or you can call it some other thing, or IRA or whatever, right? And why do we have this? Why instead of the defined benefit, which any worker who work when they retire, they can get that? Well, because we had to have this thing. And why we did have to have this thing? Because for the capital owners, the decision maker, we need to make sure that thing is within a family. So when it passed from one generation to the next. So more or less that's how it worked. Right? That's just how it was. Now typically the way this work is if whatever, let's say assume that you are a single person, right? Like I won't complicate this. You just have to know they come from one generation to the next. That's what this defined benefit. It's supposed to stay within a family, right? Instead of being something for humans, workers, right? For the common good, for the dignity of human beings in this country, it's not that. It's supposed to be preserved for these special people. Right? Now, the way this work is if you, the owner of this, whatever, let's call it account of defined contribution, right? You have this account, and let's say you die. When you die, that account, if you married, it will go to your spouse. No questions asked. Just that's it. Going to your spouse. Unless you did something that your spouse agree with, and then it go to somebody else. Right? That's just how it is. If you are single, you can design it whoever you want. Right? Right? But typically, people just hand it down to whomever they related to. Right? So that's capital relations, how this work. Now, when in the case here is the thing, my husband is with me. I'm the wife, right? If something happened to my husband, if I am not a wife, it'll automatically go to the next generation, right? So that could potentially be a concern. Now, it may not be the whole concern for this family, but it's a major one. Now, when it comes to me, I'm very knowledgeable on some of this stuff. Not all of it, but some of this stuff. I know it's a play, right? Now, I won't bore you with meaningless tirade about why I married my husband, because it doesn't matter. He knows why we together. I definitely, let me put it this way, I didn't pick him because he's the richest man on earth or any of sort. That wasn't even a consideration, right? I never been like that because it's just not interesting, and that's just not me. I don't care, right? I believe that you do what you do. This is it. This is the system, and you just do the best you can with it. That's just how I roll down, and happily for me, my children are the same way, right? They just share that ethos, values with me. And furthermore, not only they share that with me, most black folk, although some of them are also joining this club, we tend to be like that, right? It's all good. That's just not important. What I leave for my kids. My kids should trying to figure out how do you do that to make sure you have a roof over your head, you have what you need to stay alive, right? That's the goal for my children. That's the inheritance I expect from them, right? That's just how it goes. Now with these folks, that's not how it goes, right? Now they do also want that plus more, right? Now once you say that, if I'm being honest, I was upset, but I didn't really show it because I felt like that's an ultimate insult to my husband, not to me, because like I said, I don't care, right? because I don't care. But to my husband, because I felt like, hey, lady, this is your son. You should what's better for your son, right? You should want your son. For me, as a mother, I want my kids to be happy and healthy and be good citizens. That's just how I operate. And it didn't seem that this is a thing for her, right? It didn't seem like my husband desires, need, proclivity, inclination, life experience, none of that matter. Only thing that matter is these two girls and what can potentially be achieved for these two girls, not my husband. So when that happened, I already knew the decision was made, how this gonna work here, and it wasn't gonna change up. And to make things even more concrete, my husband said none, zero. Here, these are the rules, and we going with our program. We had us already established, me and him, that was gonna take place. Now, after all that happened, like I already implied before, I told you that I think that they got the hint, right? I told you that I got the hint. So at this point, I think that they resigned to the fact that, hey, there's a new arrangement and that Augustine Davis house, and we here really have close to little or nothing to do with it. And everything was whatever it is. But mind you, I'm a leftist. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I talk my man. I'm smack, right? And I am what my mom called blunt. And I, like I already say, whenever I publish something, since my husband and I got married, or even before we got married, it's, hey, it's Monique Augustine. She is with David Augustine. And the reason I did that is because I want my husband, family, to see my comments, my perspective. Because I want them to get to know me. I want them to say, hey, this is what David's wife, this is it. I don't like it, but that's it. I just want that to be out there. First of all, part of the reason they have not been seeing that for years is because my husband monitor my behavior. And moreover, he didn't want to, because again, he just wanted to preserve this thing between us, just me and him and stuff, and don't make too much fuss about it or something. I don't know. Yeah. And more or less he did it in honor of these two girls. So the way I see it, my husband have sacrificed so much. I don't know what else these people want, right? Now that I told you that, why are you telling us about the internet, Facebook? Hey, this is Monica. Monica is with David Augustine. Why are you telling us that? What are you talking about? Well, I just want to give another data point that may lead me to believe why the principal character, also known as Jean, could potentially take that back to the hospital. One day, we got information through the grapevine, meaning the mainstream press, that Joe Biden was diagnosed with a terminal illness, let's say. Now, if you remember, at least the episode yesterday or day before that, I don't know which one. Now I'm starting to lose track because this is episode number 12 of this family drama. I said that Palestine genocide have dramatized me. Okay, I'll put it that way. It has dramatized me. Now, I knew that because I'm a leftist and I read Howard Zinn, right? And I read history, in the kind of history that white folks don't really want us to read. they want us to read the version they give us, and I know what I'm dealing with. For example, I read The Settlers, all right, by J. Saki, right? So because I do that, I already knew that what we're working with. But it's one thing something happened some couple hundred years ago or so. There's something else happened on real time, and you, the individual, the human with emotions and brain and everything, watching it. So I know that the Palestine genocide, the person who is overseeing this disgusting, abominable, disgraceful genocide is Joe Biden. So you know I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. Furthermore, even before Palestine genocide and all this shit that he did, I already didn't like Joe Biden. I never did. He is a fascist, white supremacist, whatever. I don't care what black folks say because he hold their hand and they feel like this is a nice, charming white man. That I'm a leftist. I don't buy bullshit, lies. So I already don't like Joe Biden. But that's not unusual for me because I just don't like virtually nobody that can amount to be in U.S. government. So I just don't like him. And I knew he's raggedy ass, but he is in a Democratic Party. And according to right wingers in the Republican Party, they tell us the Democrats are communists, are leftists, and he was not doing anything left when it comes to Palestine genocide. In fact, I suspect, I may be wrong, that maybe some right winger would have maybe put a stop to this. I have no clue because so far the orange degenerate has not done anything. But nevertheless, he did a lot of things to do that genocide. He's all over that genocide to the point that average Joe in the street call him a genocide Joe. Okay, that's his name, and I don't think he can ever get rid of that word. Okay, genocide Joe. So I'm not happy with him. And to make matters worse, just not to make matters worse, just to tell you a little bit of how much I'm disgusted with this man. First of all, for the whole reason this man is even was a man to be the president has to do everything with somebody like me, a mulatto man, a black man called Barack Obama. Joe Biden is so racist, so freaking racist, that Barack Obama picked him specifically because he knew that he, the mulatto, that will threaten white folks that, hey, while we having this dark human running for the office on a white supremacy, he needed somebody to calm them down. Say, hey, don't worry. Do not worry. It's going to be just fine because me, Joe Biden, the white supremacist, will make sure everything is just fine. And that made the deal for white folks, and Barack Obama was elected. That's the type of what. Imagine how racist you got to be to do that job. All right? That's that. So I'm trying to give you all this information that seemed like insignificant because I'm going to tell you what happened next eventually. So knowing all this, I'm not a fan. So I can just say I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. Simply not a fan. I wish he is in jail paying for his crime. But he is not. He is somewhere in Delaware eating ice cream. So because of that, when we got that news that Joe Biden is ill, I was out and about with my husband. We went to see Mirador, a band that we like. I took cute pictures, cute videos. I went on Facebook, share my cute pictures, cute videos. And I said, hey, Monica Augustine, here's the pictures, the cute pictures, cute videos of me and my husband, David, also the villain supporter of me, the villain, Bronny. And I just want to say that we had a very lovely time. And not only that, I'm in a really good mood because we had a good news that Joe Biden is not doing well, to say the least, right? And hey, it sounds like a little price he can pay, Mother Nature taking care of the issue. When I say that, another member of my husband's family was alarmed. Now, this family member, I never met him. And I don't think my husband see him often or something. I don't know. He did not come to family reunion. He's in Augustine. He didn't come. Alright? He did not come to that. But that's besides the point for now. He was like, why? This is inappropriate. That's a bad disease. This man is suffering. Now, I want to point out about this family. In my estimation, I don't know why they never showed me the registration card, but this is, I would say, a Republican Party. It may be some of them are Democrats. I have no clue. But I know that this is a Republican Party. My husband is a Republican Party. Emily is a Republican Party. I don't know what Lacey is, but this is a Republican Party. Okay, I am, and I'm wearing a Republican collar right now. So my family is a Republican Party. So that's that. But nevertheless, I'm a Bronny. I am a leftist. Why would a leftist say that about a member of the Republican Party, or the Democratic Party rather? Because as far as they know, Joe Biden is a communist, supposed to be in the party. Something weird with this woman. David's married something strange, some extraterrestrial or something. I don't know. That's just my perception. So he came in and said, hey, that's not cool. You shouldn't be saying that. Now, for me, it's true. I'm not making fun of the disease. I'm not making fun of the human. I am making the point that Joe Biden is a bad person. All right? He's just a bad person. All right? And I shouldn't be getting to this whole kumbaya with the mainstream rag, the colonial press, with this trying to sympathize this bad person. All right? If he has some issues, it's not something for concern, because this man is committing a genocide in Palestine. All right? He is bad. He is not in prison. He has an impunity. And top of that, they want us to cry for him. This is wrong. All right? But that's me, the leftist. That's how I think. All right? Now, it just seemed like that was not where they were coming from. So remember, if you recall that incident with my mother-in-law, Jean, the principal character, she too, over there, she was concerned what her concern is based on what she get from a newspaper, right? And I give credit for that, because that's the level of information she has access to. And you can only make decision based on information, the evidence you have. So that sounds reasonable. Now for this man, I'll call him my husband's cousin, right? The Augustine, he said, this is not right. You not right. This is just not cool, Monica. You shouldn't be saying that about Joe Biden. Even though I think that he may not like Joe Biden, I don't know. I never met the man. I hope we can hang out one day. But he just felt like that was inappropriate stuff to say, because that's a bad disease. And Joe Biden is being afflicted with this disease, and we shouldn't be celebrating something like that, right? So that's what it is. But then, since he did that, I give him credit for that because it shows he cares about another human being. He may be Democrat and he may be Republican, but nevertheless, he's sick. We shouldn't be bragging about the sick. Now, I wasn't bragging. I was just saying that Joe Biden, I just don't think we should be writing on that on a newspaper, every TV. Fuck it. Fuck Joe Biden. We shouldn't be talking about it. He is irrelevant. Right now, the president I know is Donald J. Trump, the orange degenerate. And that's the only name I want to hear because Joe Biden should be gone as far as I'm concerned. Okay? So then, when that happened, I told this, my cousin, or my husband cousin, who trying to engage in this dialogue, give me an opportunity as a leftist to have this conversation with him. So I was like, I understand that Joe Biden, that's not cool, right? But Joe Biden is a criminal. He is a terrible person. Look at what he did to Palestine. That's not right. And the press is not talking about it. It's not talking about the fact that Joe Biden committed a genocide in Palestine. That bothers me because that's wrong, okay? Joe Biden is living out to be in his 30s, right? Palestinian babies with a brain out never had a chance. So, hey, I don't give no fuck about Joe Biden issues. He is a bad person. So that's what I told, more or less, that's what I told this, my husband's cousin. When I told him that, he said, hey, not an issue. Palestine genocide, those are terrorists. They're not human, whatever else. And not in those terms, but more or less that's what he said. He said in a white folks polite way, but that's the understanding. That those are terrorists. Those committed a crime, hostages. They went to the mess with the party goers. And so if they're being punished, not my problem. That's not even, shouldn't even be holding against Joe Biden because that's where Republicans and Democrats agree. When it comes to this foreign policy, there's no daylight between them, okay? So this man kind of resembled the spirit. Now, when he said that, I told him, he called Palestinian a terrorist state. I was like, hey, not true. Palestinian is not a terrorist state. The terrorist state is United States. This is the terrorist state, all right? I don't know if you know that or not. This is a stolen land, exterminated native, and took over the land. That's what you in here with the Augustine name, which is European name. You here. You're not Cherokee or some other name like that. This is a terrorist state, not Palestine. This is a terrorist state. So if you are going to talk about terrorists, remember, hey, this is a terrorist state. Now, when I did that, I knew this will go to the grapevine. I simply knew it. All right? Now, I had to point out that members of this family, they're not online. I don't think. My mother-in-law, Jean, the principal character, she's not on Facebook. Christine, I think she was on Facebook years ago. I know, because she was my friend. But I think she left. And I think the reason she left is because, again, black folks are tight-lips. And I, the new member of this family, or sir, at the time, I would say, I don't know, what do you, somebody who's talkative like that. Yeah, somebody who's talkative, who's active online. And so, well, active online, okay, I would say. So, but I knew that was the case. Now, when I said that, he said something else, which I want to address here, because that's a sentiment I have picked up from other people, not just my husband's family, but even other people who may know my husband or friends or something like that, right? Because my politics are leftist, right? Now, even though I'm brownie and I'm a leftist, there's also leftist white folks, okay? And I mean, just like me, okay? Leftists just like me, who share the identical viewpoint, right? They're there, but they these people may not know those people, okay? Because the temperament things and whatever socialization we go through, each one of us or whatever, they're more coy. They're more like, they would think that all this stuff that I'm doing, all this talking and shit, is a waste of time, or they would like, they just have different temperament. We know them because if you true leftists, you will know those kind of people. Now they also kind of obnoxious, and they would do things like Alice Perry would go there in front of weapons, and they sometimes they pay a price, right? So we do have those. So those kind of people would never be alarmed with anything I had to say, right? Because I'm within my right and I'm telling the truth, right? But with the rest of the white folks and even black folks or any other demographics, my commentary, is people just like, whoa, this is too much. That's just how it is, right? Now, because I'm like that, right? Because I'm like that, and I didn't start out this way. It's just something that progressed with me. The more truth I know, the more I feel like these things need to be discussed. We cannot do what my mom wants us to do, put them under the rock, because it's just never going to solve issue. We got to be honest about things. We have to be honest about history. We have to be honest about the ways as they are, not the ways we wish they could be. Maybe in the midst of all of that, we will get somewhere. All right? That's just my point. So when I did that with my cousin, my husband cousin, when I say that, she was like, but your husband is white, Monica. Now, when it comes to personal like that, you say something like that your husband is white, I typically don't know what to respond. Because if my husband was black, would have been okay? It would have been, what are you saying, right? Because that's stupid, in other words. The race of my husband is irrelevant to that point of view, right? It really is. It really doesn't matter. My husband is the love of my life. I'm attached to him through love and stuff. It really doesn't matter about how I feel about society, right? Because just because people are black don't mean they share my viewpoint. Don't mean that we will be on a certain boat. Just because you left us don't mean that you could be my husband. Because husband is something personal, all right? It's personal. It's based on subjective desires and stuff. So that bring me what I'm talking about, right? Now, some black folks also agree with white folks on this, that when it comes to relationship, we should not worry about subjective stuff. We should concentrate on other arrangement like capitalism, right? White folks, not so much capitalism, but other things they're concerned about. For me, none of that matter. What matter is the individual I'm in a relationship with, who they are, how they operate, how can we work this together? Is that possible? If it's not possible, it really don't matter what race they are, what color they are, or what have you, because it just couldn't work. My husband just had to be perfect for me, and that's all that matters. But just my husband is perfect, it does not mean I'm gonna be mute about how the planet I was born into operate. So I'm gonna keep talking despite what my husband was, phenotype is, right? Now when he said that, I cannot go through this whole litany that I just went through with him. I just say, I don't know. I don't know what I just don't even know how to respond to something like that to him. But after he said, uh, he said something else. He said, okay, fine. Now we know how you are. No good, right? I'll see you at family reunion. When he said that, I was like, oh, great. I'm delighted you will be coming to the family reunion. Well, when we go to family reunion, before we even go to family reunion, I told my husband at the interaction, because I know my husband does not pay attention to the millions of notifications you get from me for when I publish my stuff. Say, hey, it's Monica Agustin. He is with David Agustin. I told him the interaction, and I said, hey, guess what? We will be meeting your cousin when we go to family reunion, because I'm sure you haven't seen him in a while, and that will be a great moment to see him. Well, when we went there, he wasn't there. He did not show up. So I don't understand why he deceived me like that, giving my hopes up, and he did let me down, right? But that was that. Now, when we went to the Colorado vacation, I told the family about that incident. And I said, hey, guess what? I get a little bit of chat with my husband's cousin, and we had a little bit, we were getting to know each other. And when I said that, my understanding is they already knew, right? So they already knew. There was no need for me to go any further, right? So after that, this whole thing with my mother-in-law, with late Ruth reporting and all that stuff. You can go tomorrow, yesterday's show for all of that. With the whole family not knowing that this David's wife, the Brownie, the villain, this woman is just over the top. What's up with this? Alright? This woman here, what is wrong with this woman? Just not right. Something just not connecting here. Not so much because she is a Brownie, because although I'm the only Brownie in this family that I know of, and the Augustine family specifically, I don't think, and I'm going to give them a benefit of that, it's really because I'm a Brownie. I am a Brownie with extra bunny on top, alright? So this is what's going on here. Now, after all of that, this Colorado thing, the incident with the family on Christmas Day, and other issues, that explain to me, at least for something, why would my mother-in-law would feel that she need to take that grocery bag to the hospital, knowing that she already made a devastating decision for me to deprive me the ability to join my husband to take advantage of the 30 minutes that he was entitled to on that ICU unit. Alright? So that's just how I see this. Now, like I already said many times, and I'm gonna keep saying this. It could be that I'm just making nothing out of this. Okay, it could be. Now, I'll be happy to say sorry, Barney. Blah. This is how we think things through. But again, I'm just pointing these events, and these events just communicate all kinds of stuff to me, and I just feel that I wanted to say this stuff with this decision. Okay. Now, for now, after giving you all this, and why my mother-in-law, Jean, the principal character, took the bed to the hospital, deprived me to see her in the ICU unit, right? After this stuff, that may, okay, so these are some of the things that happen, right? That's just some of the things happen. But at the same time, I don't think that brings us out, okay? There's just more things that could potentially be the reason why she made this decision, okay? And maybe other decisions that I'm not aware yet. And when I am aware of what other decisions she makes with this whole thing, I will bring them to display. But for now, the only monumental decision that she has made so far is some of the things I have been saying. Okay? That's what I've been saying. Tomorrow, we will pick up other things. Okay? Now, some of these settings that I have mentioned had multiple things happen them. I'm not going to discuss everything that happened in these settings, but I will be repeating some of these and settings because there's important information with these settings that elicited some of the behaviors we see on some of these characters, right? And it's important to revisit those settings to bring them to flow, to make this play as honest to life as I can possibly bring it to place. So for now, that's what we will leave it today. Tomorrow, we will pick up from another setting or another realm of this play. But the core thing is this: the principal character made a decision that I, the Brownie, cannot go to her hospital room. That is the allegation, and we need to understand why she did that, and we're gonna talk about all of that going forward. Okay, so for now, for those who follow along with me on Dr. Parenti book, we will start reading the Black Shirts and rest the rationalize of fascism and the overthrow of communism. Yesterday, we left off on the book. If you remember, I'm reading this in the app, and the app is slow. It's not like a PDF, and I had to wait for it to load. Yesterday, we read everything Dr. Parenti talks about, how the suppression of the left. And if you pay attention, I am a leftist. So we knew all the raggedy things they do to suppress the left. So the left is so minuscule that it's only one woman out of billions, so like me. So that's what happened yesterday. If you don't remember, go back to yesterday, and you'll see we did that. Today, we're going to pick up the subtitle that Dr. Parenti called One-Way Democracy. More important than democratic rule was free market, quote-unquote, reform, a core word for capitalist restoration. Do you hear that? I hope you picked that up. When you hear reform, now if you are a student, if you're a true leftist, and you've been alive in the last, I want to say, 40 years or so, you know somebody called Hugo Chavez. And if you follow, a leftist will follow Hugo Chavez because he did something called a revolution in Venezuela. And Hugo Chavez is, and he has a problem with reform. And if you're a true leftist, you're also going to have a problem with reforms because when it comes to capitalism, you can't really reform it because as soon as you're trying to reform it, you will get Charlie Kirk who's going to say, hey, let's not do this because these black folks, you don't have brain processing power to compete with white folks. Y'all stealing white folks stuff. So we know that capitalism is not a system that could be reformed because it's a white supremacist racist shit and it's only reserved for white folks. So we can't have a system that is only for white folks because on planet Earth we have more than white folks, right? So reform is just like Dr. Brandy just said, a free market is the key word for reform, okay? And that's what white supremacists do in US. They go to countries, quote unquote, reform their shit so they can steal the shit and leave the people in misery. So that's that. But let's keep going. As long as democracy will be used to destabilize one party communist rule, it was championed by the forces of reaction. But when democracy worked against free market restoration, the outcome was less tolerable. In 1990, in Bulgaria, capitalist restoration did not go according to plan. I think my husband's gonna do some chili today. I'm excited. But despite generous financial and organizational assistance from U.S. sources, including the Free Congress Foundation, the Bulgarian conservatives ended up a poor second to the communists in what Western European observers judged to be a fair and open election. What followed was a coordinated series of strike, demonstration, economic pressure, acts of sabotage, and other disruption reminiscent of CIA orchestrated campaigns against left government in Chile, Jamaica, Nicaragua, and British Guiana. Within 5 months, the free market oppositions forced the democratically elected communist government to resign. Bulgaria communists, quote, complained that the U.S. had violated democratic principle in working against the freely elected official, quote, quote. The same pattern emerged in Albania, where the democratically elected communist government won an overwhelming victory at polls, only to face demonstrations, a general strike, economic pressure from abroad, and campaigns of disruption financed by National Endowment for Democracy and other U.S. sources. After 2 months, the communist government collapsed. Once the right took power, a new law was passed denying Albanian communists and other opponents of capitalist restoration the right to vote or otherwise participate in political activities. As the reward for having extended democratic right to all citizens, the Albanian communists and all former state employees and judges were stripped of their civil rights. In the 1996 Albanian election, the socialists and other opposition parties who had been predicted to do well withdrew from election hours before the polls closed and the protest of the blatantly rigged vote. Elections monitors from the European Union and the United States said that they witnessed numerous instances of police intimidations and stuff of ballot boxes. When you hear that from European and US, you know that's lies. Right? That's lies. Let me tell you something about US. US is not honest. Okay? It cannot afford to be an honest body. US is quote unquote neutral on Palestine and Israel. And if you have an a simple brain, you know that's not true. If US is involved in any election, it's not because it cares about the well-being, the welfare of the state. It cares about US interests. And US interest is thief, stealing, abusing, taking over. Okay? So let's get that straight. Alright? There's nothing about US that is good for human beings other than their favorites, which I said a little bit of that yesterday. Alright? The only people they care is somebody who would have a grocery bags that say the land of the free, the home of the brave. If you're that kind of person, US may care about you. And typically, you either brainwash black folks, which are in abundance, that US don't give a fuck about, or you are actually the preferred. But let's keep going. The Socialist Party had his final campaign rally banned and a number of prominent leading bear from running for office because of their past communist affiliation. This was reported in New York Times on May 28, 1996. When the socialists and other allies tried to hold protest rallies, they were attacked by Albanian security forces who beat and severely injured dozens of demonstrators. Openly, and that's what they reported. Again, as they said before that, when it comes to sources, Dr. Parenti is good at citing where he got the facts from. And that's all nice and dandy, but I'm trying to go through this book so we can move on to read Dr. Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. So I'm not trying to skip it sometimes. Sometimes I do it, but if I don't, I don't. If you want to know where Dr. Parenti got that from, you may have to go through the book. Alright? And if you're following along with me, I hope you won't have no problem with that because you can just see it in front of you. But let's keep going. Openly anti-Semitic group, crypto-fascist parties, and hate campaigns surfaced in Russia, Poland, Hungary, Ukraine, Belarus, Czechoslovakia, and Romania. Museums that commemorated the heroic anti-fascist resistance were closed down, and monuments to the struggle against Nazism were dismantled. In countries like Lithuania, former Nazi war criminals were exonerated, some even compensated for the years they had spent in jail. Jewish cemeteries were desecrated, and xenophobic attacks against foreigners or darker hue increased. With the communists no longer around, Jews and foreigners were blamed for the low crop prices, inflation, crime, and other social ills. As always the case, everything that's bad in this country is blamed on the marginalized, people of color, the migrant, and the like. It's never blamed on white folks, right? And never blame on them because, again, they are the citizen they care about. But the fact is, it's really not general white or otherwise. It's the ruling class. They're the one, they're the culprit. They're not the bad, evil people here. But white folks never seem to get it together to blame them. If they do blame them, they blame them because they are helping, quote unquote, the minorities. Instead of blaming them, the fact that they cause all these problems, okay? But anyway, let's keep going. On June 11, 1995, Leeds Waller, personal pastor, Father Henry Jankowski, declared during a mass in Warsaw that the quote, the Star of David implicated in the swastika as well as in the hammer and sickle, close quote. And that quote, the diabolic aggressiveness of Jews was responsible for the emergence of communism, close quote. And for World War II, what? that the diabolic aggressiveness of the Jews was responsible for the emergence of communism, close quote, and the World War II. Let's keep going. The priest added that quote. The priest added that Poles will not tolerate government made up of people who are tied to Jewish money. Walesa, who was present during the sermon, declared that his friend John Kosin was not anti-Semitic, but simply, quote, misinterpret, close quote. Rather than retracting his comments, Jankowski spewed forth the same bio in a subsequent television interview. At about that time, placards that read, quote, Jews to the gas, close quote, end quote, down with the Jewish community conspiracy, quote, close quote, were visible at a Polish solidarity demonstration of 10,000 Warsaw earnings, not a censorious word from the church or state authorities. And this was reported on Nation on August 7, 1995. The economic policies of the fascist Pinochet regime in Chile were openly admired by the newly installed capitalist government in Hungary. In 1991, leading political figures and economists from the soon-to-be abolished USSR attended a seminar on Chilean economics in Santiago and enjoyed a cordial meeting with mass murdered General Pinochet. The Chilean dictator also was accorded a friendly interview in the Literaturiana Gazeta. I'm butchering that name, by the way. A major Russia publication. Yeltsin from the security chief, Alexander Lebed, is a Pinochet admirer. Instead of being transformed into a capitalist state, some communist nations were entirely obliterated as political entities. Besides the obvious example of the Soviet Union, there is a German Democratic Republic, or East Germany, which was absorbed into the Federal Republic of Germany. South Yemen was militarily attacked and crossed by North Yemen. Ethiopia was occupied by Tigray and Eritrea forces that imprisoned large numbers of Ethiopians without trial, expropriated Ethiopian property, suppressed Ethiopian education, businesses, and news media, and imposed a, quote, systematic enforcement of the tribalism and the political organization and education, close quote. Alright, you hear that? Now, when it was the Soviet Union, Ethiopians have no problem. Now, white degenerate and the white supremacy cause go over there in Western Europe. Now, black folks are being treated any kind of way. And if you remember, when Ethiopia is the only country in Africa that has never been colonized by white degenerates, and when they did try, like Italy tried, and the Soviet Union said, hell no, we're not having it. All right? But now white supremacists throw that way they can have their way with black folks, no matter where they are on planet Earth. And that brings me back to Henry when he said, hey, Monica, you are racist too. You talk smack about white folks. And that's what I mean. Do you think I'm racist when I'm pointing this out? That United States is evil and they need to stop operating this way, and I want the citizens of the United States to wake the fuck up and learn how this country really works, and not what they think it is, but what it really is. Okay? That's my thing. But let's keep going. A systematic enforcement of tribalist political organization might well describe Yugoslavia's fate, a nation that was fragmented by force of arms into a number of small conservative republics under the suzerainty of Western powers, with That dismemberment camp is serious or worse repression and atrocity committed by contending sides. One of Yugoslavia's first breakaway republic was Croatia, which in 1990 was taken over by rightist Qatari, including some former Nazi collaborators backed by armed might of the pro-fascist Nationalist Guard Corps under under a constitution that relegated Serb Jews, Gypsies, and Muslims to second-class status. Serbs were driven from the civil service and police, evicted from their homes, had their businesses taken from them, and were subjected to special property taxes. Serbian newspapers in Croatia were suppressed. Many Serbs were forced from the land they had inhabited for three centuries. Still, Croatia was hailed by Western backers as a new form of democracy. Now, if you just follow along with me, we just read all that stuff. What does remind you? Now, you may not know too much about this region. If you follow along with me, I don't know who's following along. But if you know, it sounds a lot like Israel. Why you think that is? Because the degenerates that come from this region are the one in occupied Palestine. Some of them, anyway. Okay? And these are the ethos they have. That's why when Israel is recruiting white Jews to go to Israel to steal Palestinian land and kill Palestinian people to take the land, they don't have a much of problem because that's what they're working with. And when I already said that Russia is full of shit because Russia should not be not supporting Palestinian and tell Israel to stop, it's because this shit come from Russia. That's why. Alright? We have to be, you have to understand, we should not be respecting countries that treat human beings, human life this way, okay? If a country is full of shit, remember, you the people, you don't own country. You only own what's right, okay? Countries that behave this way, and this is colonial shit, okay? Israel is a colonial shit. U.S. is a colonial shit. And Russia, it may not be like U.S. or anything like that. And it's definitely an adversary to U.S. But it's not an adversary to Israel, and that's a problem for me, okay? I don't understand that, and I'm not here to try to please any country. If they're full of shit, they're full of shit. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm human who live on planet Earth, and I want to preserve human beings, human society like Palestinian, what have you, on Earth in dignity and be treated right. And when we have animals that come from Russia or all these Eastern Europe going to Israel and calling themselves Israeli citizens when there's no such thing as Israeli citizens, these are settlers who right now are actively committing a extermination campaign of the Palestinian people. I cannot respect any of that. That's why, if you remember in the little incident with my mother-in-law, I have very little patience on trying to sympathize with her frustration, with her pain, the fact that they was taking those hostages, and I cannot think about anything worse than that hostages. That's why, because there's this shit. They are taking people shit. They are treating, dark-skinned people any kind of way. They are treating the others, the marginalized, the downtrodden, any kind of way. People who treat other people with this kind of disdain and contempt, I have equal contempt for them. That's me, okay? That's me. That's why my husband's family have a problem when I have no mercy, or at least concern for Joe Biden, because that's not a problem that should be concerned for me, because he is a colonizer, and the colonizer, slaveholder, is not somebody I can sympathize with. But let's finish this up. In 1996, Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko, a self-professed admirer of the Hitler organizational skills, shut down the independent newspaper and the radio station and decreed the opposition parliament defunct. Lukashenko was awarded absolute power in referendum and claimed an affiliate to turn out, with no one knowing how many ballots were printed or how they were counted. Some opposition leaders flee for their lives. Quote, once a rich Soviet republic that produced tractors and TV, Belarus is now a basket case, close quote, with a third of the population living in, quote, deeply poverty. That was reported in San Francisco Bay Guardian on December 4th, 1996. All right, we'll leave it there for today because I think this video is already long. But we'll pick up another part tomorrow. We'll pick up must be adore Vaclav Havel is a question that Dr. Parenti asking. But for now, that was it. I would again, if you got this far, that means you must like my video. So please do like it, do share it, do comment it, do subscribe to my channel. I think all those people yesterday who subscribed, there were some few of you that subscribed yesterday. I'm really grateful for that. I really want to keep my YouTube up. I don't want YouTube to find excuses to delete me for being gay or fabulous or being leftist or being anything like that. So at least I do my part to try to keep it up. And I don't want to have to go to trouble and try and create another email, try and create another YouTube page. I want to keep this one up. Just like I did with Twitter. They used to delete my Twitter account. But no, somehow I learned to keep it. And I've been having now for going on 6 years. They have not really complained about my Twitter account because for once, I do trying to avoid following any Democratic Party shit. I trying to avoid following any Republican shit. I trying to stay to my leftist, barely any, and stay with that. So, quote unquote, a bubble. But I feel like the bubble for me works way better than trying to torment myself with degenerates who are here to exterminate people and take over the land. So that's just how I see it. But for now, we'll put the song, our favorite. I think I'll put today. How do you feel about this? Yeah, we'll just leave it the same one yesterday. No soy de aquí ni soy de allá.
You want to file free? Hit If the Colonel saw the price of a lunch today, he'd have some choice words. But with KFC's $5 bowls... Me gusta el sol, Alicia y la paloma, el buen cigarro y las malas señoras, saltar paredes y abrir las ventanas, y cuando llora una mujer. Me gusta el vino tanto como las flores y los conejos, pero no los tractores, y el pan casero y la voz de Dolores, y el mar mojándome los pies. No soy de aquí ni soy de allá, no tengo edad ni porvenir, y ser feliz es mi color de identidad. Me gusta estar tirado siempre en la arena, en mi matungo perseguir a Manuela, o todo el tiempo para ver las estrellas con la María en el trigal. No soy de aquí ni soy de allá, no tengo edad ni porvenir, y ser feliz es mi color de identidad. Me gusta el sol, Alicia y las palomas, el buen cigarro y las malas señoras, saltar paredes y abrir las ventanas, y cuando llora una mujer